Dear students, I hope you all are fine and that your exam preparation is going well. Students often face difficulties in being able to write properly thought out, well planned and well constructed essays in their theoretical subjects. So I've made this video specially for you to be able to help you out in terms of academic writing, and together let's hope we are able to learn how to write down well formulated essays so that each one of you can be able to score highly in your exams. So let's get started. So students, in terms of the tips to be able to really comprehend the question and be able to answer it properly, please keep in mind that you should always look out for the logical sections, subsections, or for that matter parts of any particular essay question. Examiners often formulate the questions in a particular way in which they have to be answered in terms of particular sections. Let's take a look at two questions, one from the subject of interpreting management and the other from the subject of organizational studies, to be able to really decode and decipher how there are at times different parts of a question which need to be addressed when you are writing down your essay answers. So students, now let's take a look at some questions from the subject of organization studies and then interpreting management. Let's see how that we can be able to decode and see the components of the question. These will help us to understand what are the requirements of the content that you will be placing within the answers of these essays. So in this question from the subject of organization studies, we have this statement: outline the historic rise of management. What are the implications of thinking of managerialization as an ideology? So when you take a look at this, the question has two logical components or two logical sections, so to speak, in this. I have color-coded these for you. The first part or the first logical section is outline the historic rise of management. So you see how the first part of this question happens to be talking about how there has been a historical rise, or so to speak a historical evolution in the concept of management. But then the question does not stop here. It takes you into a different requirement as well. It is important that given the exam conditions and given the exam stress, and also how you have to time your answers properly within the exam conditions, at times students may miss out on the second subsection. So the second portion over here, the second expectation of the examiner is that you will address this part of the question. What are the implications of thinking of managerialization as an ideology? So the idea that there is some concept known as managerialization, and if we consider managerialization as an ideology, then what are the implications, what are the effects, what are the consequences of such type of thinking in terms of the overall subject of organization studies, and what this entails for management is something that is important for you to address. Please keep in mind that in terms of the way in which the marks have been allocated, it is quite possible that you may be writing down in detail about the outline of the historic rise of management, but miss out on the second part, or give a less detailed answer for the second part or the second subsection, as I'm calling it, and therefore it is quite possible that your overall answer remains weak. So students, the tip that we are trying to learn in this particular section of this video is that questions often have two or perhaps even more than two subsections. You need to be very careful in how you are addressing your answers in terms of your essay's structure. Let's take a look at a different question. Now, this is a question from the subject of interpreting management, another very important, very open-ended theoretical subject that you will be attempting in your examinations. So when we take a careful look at this question, let's see, it says discuss the fundamentals of the neo-modernist paradigm. So the discussion at hand in this question is about the neo-modernist paradigm. But the question does not stop here. It says its historical roots. So you can notice how this is a separate section that needs to be addressed in your answer, and how it relates to organizational theory. So we can see how when I color code this, we can decode this as consisting of three separate sections. Now please keep in mind when I say that these are three separate sections, these are obviously very much interrelated, but logically speaking, the examiner first and foremost is asking us to address one section, which is fundamentals of the neo-modernist paradigm. So you will be starting off your answer by addressing this section. Then the examiner expects candidates to be able to talk about its historical emergence, its historical roots. And then the third section, which you simply cannot forget, is that how does neo-modernist paradigm and the way in which it has historically emerged and developed relate to organizational theory as a whole. So this is now going to be the final part of your answer. So students, what I've tried to do in this section of the video is to tell you how you need to be very careful in taking a look at the question and be able to break it down into its separate sections, and then writing down the answer becomes first and foremost a lot more simpler. And secondly, you're able to keep a track of where you are in terms of the structure of the answer. Once you would have completed this section, then it would be easier for you to keep track that now you're moving into the historical roots section of this answer, and that you have one more area that you still have to answer, which is about how neo-modernist paradigm and its principles relate to organizational theory. So in the next part of this video, we are going to take a look at some other important tips and techniques which should help you in being able to structure essays that are high scoring and informative. Without a proper structure of your essay and without what I call an architecture of your ideas, your views are not going to be very clear to the examiner. So therefore it is important that your answers are structured in a particular way in terms of proper paragraphing. Without this architecture, your answer would be just a mere hodgepodge of different arguments, different ideas and explanations which are all mixed up, but which do not provide that type of clarity to the examiner that he or she wants for you to be able to gain marks at the highest level. One conventional way of going about this is to be able to build three parts into your essay. So you start off with the introductory paragraph. Your introductory paragraph needs to be what is called a roadmap paragraph. It needs to present an outline of where your argument is going to start off, how is it going to proceed, and in what direction are you going to take your argument. Effective introductory roadmap paragraphs, they provide the examiner with a good indication that you are a smart candidate who has a good understanding of the overall argument. So you might want to start off with the introductory paragraph, then move on to what is called the body of this argument. This could be a number of paragraphs which are going to be populated with your core concepts, with the theories for that matter, and the examples that you might have from various business organizations to be able to elaborate on your argument. The last part of this has to be a conclusion paragraph. Many students consider that the conclusion paragraph is something which is not required, but the examiners, they really look forward to your argument being rounded off, so to speak, in a nice manner towards the end of your essay. So please do not forget the structuring of your argument. Now students, let's move on to the next tip, which is going to be important for you when you sit down in your exams and write down an essay. This has to do with building up an argument. Many candidates might consider that building an argument is mainly about expressing their opinion within the answer. This is a very narrow view of the argument contained in an essay. Your answers need to move beyond what are called personal assertions, which are your personal views. These need to be properly populated with evidence, with theories, with content, with references, so that the answer starts to become more and more loaded, so to speak. Examiners often complain that essays do not move beyond a mere description of ideas. Any good essay needs to have not only the descriptive part, but rather also the assessment or the analysis part, which is extremely important. Is there a discussion that is taking place within your essay or not? This is key. It is significant that you're not only listing down your points in a particular way, but rather you're also being critical about them. What is the strength of your argument? What are the weaknesses involved in this particular argument? So we need to ensure that there is a certain degree of assessment which is taking place. Dear students, I hope you found this video to be helpful. My aim was to provide you with some core tips and techniques so that we can learn how to be able to write our essays more effectively, particularly for the theoretical subjects that you have to attempt in your examinations very soon. My focus in the next video will be to provide you with a walkthrough of how is it that we have to first of all decode the question, decipher the statement that has been provided to us, then take a look at the logical sections and subsections that need to be addressed in that particular question, and be able to build the logical architecture, so to speak, on how paragraphing is going to take place, and how is it that we can be able to build our arguments by bringing in powerful keywords, key terms, references, and so on and so forth. Till then, I request everybody to please stay safe and take care of yourself. Keep on revising. Thank you very much.